Oh, I think I lost the connection. Are you here? Are you here? I think I lost the connection for a couple of seconds. Can you hear me now?
I sure can.
Okay, because I lost you. I lost the video.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Yes, no, I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
yeah, I think it's good. I think it's good.
Okay.
Okay, so let's start. So you basically know the questions. I mean, you know what we're going to talk about, right?
Right.
More or less.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, so let's start and okay, the camera is very good now. Yeah. Okay, so I thank you very much, first of all, for your time. Thank you for being our guest today. These busy times and very tough times, actually, because of the pandemic, etc. So I think this problem is all around the world, and we're back to our studios finally, because because of this situation, we couldn't just come back to our studio. And you're still home, or you're in the office?
Well, no, I am at my youngest daughter's home in Texas right now, but I'll be going back tomorrow to DC.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time. I know this is a very important time for you, so you're with your family. But thank you for taking your time and being with us. So I would like to talk about the religious freedom issues around the world, and this is a very important thing, what you do. How would you evaluate the situation between right after the war between Armenia and Azerbaijan in the South Caucasus region? Do you think there will be a problem with the religious freedom after the war, especially that some of Armenian churches were occupied by Azerbaijani forces, and these Christian churches are now under control of Muslim Azeris. So, what do you think about the situation?
Well, obviously, it is a very complicated situation because we're talking about land masses and trying to regain land, regain power, and of course, USERF focuses directly on religious issues and religious freedom. And so, while we have certainly called out the bombing or the shelling of a cathedral there, and that we are certainly calling them out for that and telling them to please not be destroying religious sites, churches, mosques that people attend for their faith. And so we continue to focus on that. And but there are many, many issues. And of course, they concern other human rights. But the one we focus on is about the religious freedoms. And so we certainly are calling them out where they are shelling and destroying houses of worship.
Are there any mechanisms to protect or to monitor what's happening with the places of worship during the wartime?
Well, what we hope is that by highlighting them, making people in other parts of the world aware of what is happening, that they will call out those governments for their actions. And it's interesting that many of these countries do not want to be looked upon in a bad way. They don't want the United States to be saying critical things about them, and they don't want other countries. And so many times, just bringing things to light and letting the world know what is happening is in its own way a deterrent.
So this is one of the mechanisms to keep everything sort of under control.
Certainly. We do the same thing with our prisoners of conscience. We believe that when we adopt people that have been arrested for no other reason than practicing their faith, that if we adopt them and give them a name and a face and talk about them in the news, that again, that showcases to the world what these countries are doing and how it is such a human right horrific act against their human right to practice their faith, that sometimes that helps in, we hope, promoting the release of some of these prisoners.
Okay. My next question is about there's your organization, and also there is an International Religious Freedom Alliance, which is sort of international part of your organizations, right? I mean, what is the connection between these two bodies?
I'm sorry, I lost the last part. What is our USERF's connection with whom?
With the International Religious Freedom Alliance.
Well, actually, there is a very strong alliance. The International Freedom Alliance is actually through the State Department. Ambassador Sam Brownback is a part of that. So we work with them, not for them or not under them, but certainly complement one another in and share the same type of issues.
How many members the alliance now has?
You know, there are, I hesitate to say because it seems to be growing weekly, but several countries are involved in that. Now, USERF is comprised of 9 commissioners from the United States, bipartisan and diverse. You know, we're from all over the country, but we are certainly domiciled here in the United States. The International Religious Freedom Alliance have representatives from many countries.
I wanted to talk about Turkey just a little bit. We all know that there are a lot of problems with Turkey, with the religious freedom situation in Turkey. We know that they converted the Saint Sophia Cathedral to the mosque, and there was not a big reaction on that from the international community. What can you say about that?
Well, you know, it's interesting because what we have noticed that starting in 2019 and then certainly continuing into 2020, there has been an uptick in the violence and chaos in Turkey against religious groups and inciting violence on people. In fact, a strong upsurge in anti-Semitism in Turkey and hate speech that's been directed toward the Jews, the Armenians, and the Greeks, and particularly connected with this COVID-19. It's interesting that countries use this virus as an excuse to blame religious groups or religious or faith as being the cause of the virus, or that they are the reason that the virus is spreading. And so we've noticed that certainly in 2020, the Turkey government has really increased their hate speech. They're arresting people for blasphemy. So we continue to call them out for that. And certainly the whole issue with the church and the mosque and switching it back, yes, we have continued to call them out and continue to monitor what is happening in that country.
So some experts are saying that Turkey is trying to sort of make this pan-Turkish geographical sort of union, including many Turkic states in that pan-Turkey thing. So I think it will be a big problem for religious minorities too if we are dealing with a Turkey, as you mentioned, doing very wrong things.
Well, yes, there seems to be. I mean, there apparently is some agenda to what they are doing and why they are doing it. And so we just continue to monitor, and we'll call out as we see their activities to call them on that, every time we can.
Okay. As we know, you have the 46th president already. So Joe Biden will come to the office on January 20. What do you think about his views on international religious freedom? As we know, Trump administration was very actively involved in religious freedom issues. As we know, Vice President and the State Secretary of State, they are personally very involved in international religious freedom. What do you think? What will be the position of the Biden administration on these issues?
Well, I can honestly say I have not spoken to President-elect Biden, but I believe that under the leadership of Ambassador Sam Brownback and certainly Secretary of State Pompeo and USCIRF, the commission, has played such an important role during this last 4 years of highlighting the injustices around the world, the need to monitor religious freedom and to certainly work every day advocating for people that are being imprisoned for their faith and terrorized, that I strongly believe that President-elect Biden will support this work and not only continue to support it, but will elevate it and continue to encourage our work globally.
So you think that the religious issues will be sort of part of his strategy in foreign policy?
I absolutely do. I know I, for one, would certainly encourage that the basic right of freedom of religion should be a part of any economic conversation with a foreign country, just as we're doing with China now. I think we keep pushing that companies in the United States that work with China should be aware that many of these companies in China, the products are being made under forced labor, people being held in concentration camps, which they call educational detention centers, and of course they're not. So I believe that absolutely it should be the part of any conversation, and I think that he will be encouraged to do that.
As you talked about China, I have a few questions about China. So, what do you think? What the United States and what the international community should do, or what kind of measures must be taken to promote religious freedom in China? I mean, what steps must be done?
Well, again, China is one of those very complicated situations because of the economic impact that China plays on our country and certainly globally. But their treatment of Uyghurs and the Falun Gong, I mean, these are atrocities to people, to a religious faith, and it is known around the world. So I believe that sanctions should certainly, and when I say I'm speaking in terms of the whole international religious freedom organization, certainly believes that there should be sanctions against these companies that are reacting, that companies are buying products. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry, I apologize. But sanctions should be leveled against China, that they should know that there are consequences to treating the people of your country in a horrific fashion, that this is not acceptable. It should not be acceptable in China, and it's certainly not acceptable to the rest of the world.
So when we're talking about sanctions, what do we specifically mean? What kind of sanctions?
Well, I think that American companies should not continue to do business. I mean, I think that should be part of the conversation. If we're going to work with you, if we're going to sign a contract, then we need assurances that who the labor force will be, how these people are being treated. So I think these are just conversations that certainly need to be had. And if they can't guarantee those, then I think contracts should not be signed with these companies.
So basically, this is the sanctions against the business, but they are not going to come. You think they're not going to come from the White House or from the Congress?
Well, I think it's a combination of both. I think if our American companies are encouraged by our federal government to be more aware of who they're dealing with and what type of business relationships are had, I think companies will pay attention. I think if no one is saying anything, then that's almost like you are being complicit by not saying anything. So
Exactly.
I think these are just conversations that certainly need to be had.
I got you. And actually, there were some ideas, like there were some ideas coming from the experts that there could be some boycott of the Beijing Olympic Games because of that. Do you think these scenarios are possible?
Oh, I think that absolutely a conversation about the Olympics is certainly one of the ways and one of the ideas that why should we support a major event in that country, which is going to be very economically beneficial to them, and highlighting and honoring a country that's treating its people the way that it is. So that certainly should be a part of the conversation.
But nothing concrete yet. So this is just a conceptual thing, but not concrete
Yes,
thing.
yes.
Okay. A few questions about the Central Asia, because the United States published Central Asia strategy recently, just about a few months ago, actually. What do you think? What is the situation in Central Asian countries about the religious freedom? Because Uzbekistan, for example, is doing a good job in that regard. Do you think that U.S. will be more involved in Central Asia in that regard, in the religious freedom regard?
Yes, I think that when we look at our globally areas of the world that are trying to do better. I mean, I think about Sudan, which has made such drastic improvements. We look at Azerbaijan, which certainly have made improvements in their Uzbekistan. Certainly, they have been eliminating some of their blasphemy laws. So as you look around the country, you have these pockets of countries, small countries that are trying to uplift, trying to do better, and have worked with not only USERF but certainly with the State Department to to change the culture of their people, to highlight and to offer more freedom for people in their religion. Now, having said that, then you still have countries that are trending poorly. And so you look at Nigeria and Africa. So I'm just sort of mentioning around the world globally. So you have these hotspots that are trending badly, but then you have these areas that are trying to uplift. And so what we try to do at USERF is certainly to elevate the countries that are changing their culture, changing laws, promoting religious freedom, and to continue to then showcase the countries. So, for example, in Russia, where Jehovah Witnesses have been treated so poorly and people imprisoned for up to 6 years because of their faith and refusing to serve in the military. So we want to call out where things are trending poorly, but not to forget those countries that are sometimes located in very bad neighborhoods that are literally trying to lift up their people. And so it's that balance, it's that delicate balance that you face every day, those challenges.
You mentioned actually Azerbaijan. So there is an Armenian church in the center of Baku, which is closed, so nobody can go there, nobody can pray there. Also, Azerbaijan was the country that bombed the Armenian cathedral, Christian cathedral in Shushi, as you mentioned in the beginning of our conversation. So is Azerbaijan really doing good, or they? I think they still have a lot of things to do in that regard. I think it's just a disaster how they deal with Christians in their country or surrounding.
Well, it's interesting because, as I said, Azerbaijan has come a long way in terms of opening up more, allowing more registrations of religions, allowing churches to practice their faith and their services. But having said that, there still are a lot of undue restrictions that are placed on religious groups, and there are still many groups that are not allowed to be recognized, are not allowed to be registered. And so we have them on what we call a special watch list. They're not as egregious as a country of particular concern, but we feel like they are still inhibiting people practicing their faith openly and freely across the country, that there are still, and in fact, within the Muslim population itself, this division of how minorities are treated. So, yeah, so again, we would say to them, changes that you have made that are positive are very good, but you need to continue to improve. You need to continue to open and allow more people to register and to practice their faith.
So can you give me the list of the worst countries in that regard?
Well, as I said, we have countries that certainly have shown great improvements. Uzbekistan they have been dropping their blasphemy laws, which of course we encourage around the world, that the blasphemy laws should not be in effect, should not be used to punish people from practicing their faith. Probably one of the most outstanding situations that we have seen is Sudan. With the overthrow and the new power, they have certainly done so many things to improve not only allowing people to practice their faith, but in many human rights, in the way they are allowing their people more freedom. And so I think right now you might want to say that Sudan is the poster child on how a country can turn around its laws and customs to allow people to practice their faith freely and openly.
Actually, a few things maybe about Russia. We didn't talk about Russia. What is the situation with Russia?
It's interesting. And again, Russia's one of those that is looking worse, not better. I mean, they are not improving. They are actually trending poorly, and they are the ones that tend to be arresting and imprisoning, particularly Jehovah Witnesses, and for long terms. I mean, up to 5-6 years in prison. And actually, in most of these countries, there is a law that says that people that practice the faith of Jehovah's Witness should be allowed alternative service. But then these countries don't do that. Now, in visiting, sometimes a country will say, well, they are afraid if they allow Jehovah Witnesses to have alternative service opportunities, that then everyone will want to be a Jehovah Witness, so they won't have to go into service. And of course, that's not true. That doesn't happen. And we encourage them that that's not the case. But again, we believe in most cases that's an excuse that they use, that they're not really afraid. They just want to punish rather than offer alternative service. But there has been quite an uptick. And in fact, Daniel Christensen, who is I have adopted. He is my prisoner of conscience. He had actually been scheduled to be released, and then he had just been released, and a judge came out and said no. He was rearrested, and now he's in what they call a punishment prison for infractions while he was in prison. So they seem to be able to create scenarios. They never say it's because he's a Jehovah's Witness. They create other excuses to imprison, but that is exactly what it is. And in fact, they've even, in a couple of cases, been arresting the wives and children in a Jehovah's Witness family. So not just the male member, but the entire family.
And the last question, actually, because as we're from Armenia, we cannot escape this topic. How about Armenia? How is our country doing in the religious freedom field?
Well, you know, I think Armenia, like many countries around the world, are in areas where there are bad things going on around. And so Armenia, again, like many countries, are caught up in trying to preserve, hold on, protect. And then with this virus, you have that's even an added layer for a country to deal with. So my hope is that Armenia will be able um, to have more peace in its country. That with perhaps the COVID, if we can get a vaccine and bring that down, that it may ease the tension in some of these areas. But so we try to balance. We understand that countries want to protect their land, they want to protect their people, they want to protect their culture. And what we try to do is encourage them to do that, but still also protecting the rights of individuals to practice their faith. And so that would be our work with Armenia.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your time, and thank you for being with us. And have a good weekend. I know you're spending it with your family.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your interest and for taking the time to promote these issues to your fellow constituents out there. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
You have a great weekend.
Thank you, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.